I want to talk about something that I think most people in their 50s have got somewhere in the back of their mind, but probably haven't actually sat down and properly looked at it. And I'll be honest with you, I had neither. Not properly, not until this week. Because there's a change coming in 2028, 2 years from now. And it affects when you can actually get your hands on your private pension, or your workplace pension, or your personal pension. The pot that you've spent years building up. Right now, the minimum age you can access that money is 55. And from the 6th of April 2028, for most people, that rises to 57. 2 years. 2 years that you might have had in your plan, factored in, without even realising it. They're about to disappear. And here's what got me about it. My wife turns 55 in November 2027. 5 months before this change kicks in. And until this week, we hadn't even had that conversation about what it means for her, what it means for us. And that's why I'm making this video, really. Not because I've got it all figured out, because I really haven't. And I suspect that quite a few of you are in this exact same place. So let me explain what this change actually is, because it's got a slightly technical name that makes it sound far more complicated than what it really is. It's called the Normal Minimum Pension Age, which is just the government's way of saying the earliest age some people can start drawing money from their private or workplace pensions without any significant tax penalty. And it's been 55 since 2010. Before that, it was 50. I didn't even know that myself. So it has moved before, but now it's moving again. And from the 6th of April 2028, the normal minimum pension age rises to 57. Now, this is confirmed in law. It was legislated in the Finance Act 2022. It's not a rumour. It's not speculation. It's happening. Now, who does this actually affect? Because this is where I want to be careful and best I can accurate. If you were born on or before the 5th of April 1971, you'll already be 57 or older by the time April 2028 arrives. So this change won't affect you. If you were born between the 6th of April 1971 and the 5th of April 1973, you'll turn 55 before April 2028. But you won't yet be 57. So you've got this small kind of window from your 55th birthday until the 5th of April 2028. And this is where the current rules will still apply. If you were born after the 5th of April 1973, the earliest you're going to be able to access your pension under the new rules will be 57. Full stop. Now, I need to say something clearly here because I think it's important. I'm not a financial advisor, okay? Nothing in this video is financial advice. Every pension scheme has its own rules. And there are some situations, certain pension schemes in certain occupations, ill health, where different rules can apply. So the practical action from this video isn't take Dave's word for it. It's check your own pension. Check your own circumstances. Call your provider. Find out what your specific situation looks like. What I'm trying to do here is make sure you know the question exists, so you can go and get the right answer for yourself. So with all that said, let me tell you why I think this matters. So here's the thing about being in your 50s and planning for retirement. Most people don't have one clean number in their head. We all like to think we have. most people have a rough shape, a vague picture. Something like, I want to be out by 60, or I'll reassess at 58. Or, and I hear this a lot, I just need to get to the point where I can access my pension and take it from there. And for a long time, that access point has been 55. Not because 55 was ever the plan all the time, just because 55 was the floor. It was the earliest possible moment most of us were aware of anyway, the backstop. And now that backstop has moved, or is moving, to 57, which may not sound like a dramatic fanfare thing. It's 2 years. But 2 years in retirement planning isn't always nothing. If your rough shape was get to 55, access the pension, figure it out, that plan has just got a 2-year gap built into it that wasn't there before. And the question is now, what fills that gap? Because if you can't touch your pension until 57 and you want to stop work at 55, you need 2 more years of income from somewhere else, whether that's savings, ISAs, part-time work, or a combination of them. That's a bridge that you now need to plan for, not to discover on the day you want to leave. Now, I need to be honest about this. For most people watching this channel, the plan probably isn't to stop completely at 55. I talk all the time about the bridge to 67, about phased exits, and about not cliff jumping into full retirement. 55 as a hard stop was always a fairly aggressive timeline if it was in yours. But here's what has changed. It's not just about the people who are planning to retire at 55. It's about the people who had 55 in the back of their mind as a safety valve, as the moment where options suddenly opened up for them. Where if everything got too much, they can now do something about it. That valve, that pressure valve, just moved to 57. And for those people who are already feeling the weight of another few years in work is too much, and they've mentally checked out of it, that's not a trivial shift. That's 2 more years. 2 more years before you can have any real flexibility now. And I'll tell you what my honest reaction to this was when I looked at it properly this week. It wasn't surprise, it wasn't outrage, just, of course. Of course it's moving. Of course 55 wasn't going to stay at 55. Because 55 was always going to feel too generous to a government that's looking at benefits, the benefits bill they've got, and the demographics, and the fact that people now are living longer and longer. And I think most people in their 50s, if they were honest with themselves, feel the same way. We've lived through enough of these changes in legislation ages to know how this works. The state pension age moved. We witnessed that. The private pension access age is now moving too. The age at which you're considered old enough for anything really just keeps quietly shifting upwards. It's not shocking. It is kind of exhausting. Because what it means practically is that every time you build a plan, you have to build in an assumption that some part of it is going to shift within it. That the number you're planning around today might not be the number by the time you get there. And I think that low-grade uncertainty is one of the things that makes retirement planning feel so much harder than it should be. It's not just the maths. It's the fact that you're doing the maths on a moving target. And the only real answer to that, the only thing that actually helps, is margin. building enough slack into your plan that when the next thing shifts, it doesn't collapse the whole thing. Which is fairly easy to say, isn't it? Harder to do when you're trying to get out as soon as possible. And every extra year in work, if you like, feels like another year that you're just never going to get back. I know that feeling. I live with it every day. So, what does this mean practically? Because this is the part that I think we need to understand. The gap that I talk about on this channel a lot is the bridge between when you stop work and when the state pension arrives. And that's 67. And we have to keep an eye on that. And that's always been the central planning problem for people in their 50s. And what this change does is add a potential second gap at the front end of that bridge. If you're, say, 53 right now, your private pension isn't accessible until you're 57 now. You've got a potential gap from whenever you stop work to 57 to be covered by savings, ISAs, and maybe some part-time income. Then from 57, you can start drawing at least on your private pension. And then you've got till 67 when the state pension arrives. And that takes a lot more pressure off. So 3 phases now, not 2. 3 different income sources, all of which need to be planned around ages that, as we've just established, have a habit of moving. Now, if you're already thinking in terms of phased exits anyway, reducing hours, stepping down, gradually building a part-time income, this probably isn't as scary as it sounds, because you're not relying on a cliff edge jump at any specific age anyway. You're managing a transition, which is, in my opinion, the best way to do it. But if your plan was simpler than that, work until 55, access the pension, job done, then this change is genuinely significant. And you need to know about it now, not in 2027, when you're about to turn 55 and you find out the rules have changed. Which brings me back to what I said earlier about my wife. She turns 55 in November 2027, 5 months before this change. And we haven't sat down and looked at this properly yet. We don't actually know what the right move is for us, or what her scheme rules say, and what the right questions even are. And I'm aware that conversation needs to happen soon. Not because I'm panicking, but because 2 years isn't a long time when you're talking about decisions that take time to think through properly together. And if that's you, if there's someone in your house whose situation you haven't properly mapped out yet, this is a little nudge just to do it. Not because it's urgent or a crisis as such, but because knowing is always better than not knowing. And you can have that conversation and know where you're heading. Because here's what I keep coming back to with all of this. The things that affect our retirement plans the most, the change that genuinely reshape the picture, if you like, they don't arrive with a fanfare. They don't land with a government press conference and a letter through the door to let you know what's going on. They get legislated quietly, years in advance. And then one day, you're doing a bit of research, as I was, and you realise the floor has moved, but nobody specifically told you. And that's what's happened here. This was legislated in 2022, 4 years ago. And yet most people still that I speak to, people who are actively thinking about retirement, who are doing all the work, either, like myself, vaguely knew about it or hadn't even thought about what it actually means for their plans. The goalposts just keep moving. We all know that. We all expect it at some level. But expecting something and actually accounting for it in your plans are two different things. So the two practical things I'd ask you to do after watching this, and actually do them, don't just nod along. Firstly, work out how old you'll be on the 6th of April 2028. If you're already past 57, this isn't your problem. If you're not, it might be worth understanding what it means for you. And secondly, if you've got a pension, contact your provider and ask them directly what the access rules are for your specific scheme. Not the general rule, your scheme. Because sometimes the answer is different and you need to know your actual situation. That's it really. No drama. Just know what you're dealing with. Now, if this was useful, if something in here made you think about your own situation differently, I genuinely ask you to subscribe, because that's what this channel is. Not a financial service. I'll never be that. Not polished expertise. I think you'll agree with me there. Just someone in the same place as you, trying to figure out what's actually true and what it actually means for people like us. And please do drop me a comment. Did you know this was changing? Had it registered for you? And were you fully aware of what that meant in your plans? So I'd like to know how many people watching this already had it on their radar. See you next one.